Hey guys, so this is going to be one crazy high school reunion for President Yoon, who declared martial law about a week ago. Don't worry, if you didn't get the latest updates, it was canceled after 6 hours. 2 hours by the National Assembly, 6 hours by the president, but he roped in his high school alumni people who he appointed to key positions who executed a lot of this martial law plan. We got an apology from President Yoon over the weekend, but it was so short. It wasn't even 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes if you counted his bow at the end. Yes, there was an impeachment motion set by the National Assembly, but it did not succeed. So what's happening now in Korea? What are the steps forward, and who's actually running the country? So Korea and onlookers of Korea are sifting through the aftermath of that disastrous martial law declaration last week. Korean press is even calling it a civil war, and essentially it is. And it was an extreme manifestation of a civil war. But of course, there's always been a civil war going on, even within South Korea. We're not even talking about North Korea versus South Korea. If there's a fence, oh yes, you know them Korean people are going to have a civil war about any boundary, border, groups of people, competition for power. And that's essentially what's going on right now. Who is going to be in charge in the interim and also moving forward when there's another presidential election? But let's start with the apology. That was like literally almost like a sorry, not sorry. And we don't have any indications that the president is going to issue another statement or another apology that would be a little bit beefier than what he did. He is under a travel ban right now, so he's not allowed to leave the country. And the declaration of martial law itself is not impeachable, but if it's unconstitutional, if it's illegal, and also in order to implement the martial law, if he violated other laws, then definitely he could be impeached. Now, there's going to be an impeachment motion every week now from the National Assembly, which is controlled by his political opponents, the Democrats. He's essentially the Korea version of the Republicans, the PPP party, People's Power Party. If you're wondering, it's not depends type of situation here. And the goal of his party is to have him resign and do it on a delayed timeline, whereas the Democrat Party wants him out of power right away and accelerate elections. Because why? The leader of the Democratic Party could be the president, and they would like that, but the president's party would hate that. But again, we're going to go into his apology. Now, this came on the same day, on Saturday, Korea time, when they had the impeachment motion in the National Assembly. And he said, "Dear fellow citizens, I declared martial law at 11 p.m. on December 3rd. About 2 hours later, around 1 a.m. on December 4th, in accordance with the National Assembly's resolution to nullify martial law declaration, I ordered the military forces to withdraw and lifted martial law after a late-night cabinet meeting. The declaration of emergency martial law was motivated by the desperation of a president who is the final decision maker in state affairs." Note that he said it's desperation of the president. What was he desperate about? In the last video, we're saying that my position is that he's desperate to save his wife more so than the country, because why would he be talking about desperation of the president? He should be talking about, if this was really a justified martial law, there is still the threat. The threat wouldn't have gone away. He should be saying like, look, okay, I'm willing to take the responsibility for declaring martial law, but still, you guys, there's this big threat right now that's why I declared martial law. But he didn't say that. However, in the process, I caused concerns and inconvenience to the people. I am very sorry and apologize to the people who must have been very surprised. Oh, you think? The whole world was surprised. How could he not know that when you say martial law in this type of situation in Korea, immediately people are thinking there must be a North Korea situation going on? Regarding my declaration, I will confront my legal and political responsibility. So he's saying he's willing to take the hits and be accountable for what he did. Dear fellow citizens. Oh, suddenly now that he's under the fire, everybody's a fellow citizen. It's like, hey. Anyhow, he says fellow citizens a lot. There are rumors that martial law will be imposed again, but let me be clear, there will be no such thing as a second martial law declaration. Remember when I made the previous video on martial law, there was this, I was kind of weighing to, should I wait until we get his apology or his statement after the fact, because it was going to come any minute on Thursday Korea time, but it never came. So thank goodness I made the video, but it came on Saturday. He waited such a long time to make his apology. So during that interim, there was a lot of rumblings, people saying like, he might actually just try again and go for martial law again. And so that's why he had to say, let me clear up the rumors. Dear fellow citizens. Yeah, again, fellow citizens. For the rest of my term, I will entrust my power to the ruling party to stabilize political situations. Our party and the government will together take responsibility for future state affairs. Once again, I apologize for causing concern to the people. And then he bowed. And then, yeah, literally 2 minutes in, 2 minutes out of there. It could have been a YouTube short. He said that he's going to hand over power to the ruling party, the prime minister who's of his party, and he appoints. So the prime minister in Korea really has no power, and the PPP. So this is why it's causing constitutional controversy. So apparently the prime minister is supposed to take over when the president is incapacitated. But in this kind of situation, it's like, well, but he still is the president. He didn't really go anywhere. He just did something really horrible that we have to now stop him from being president. But it's in that gray zone of whether the prime minister just takes over. I thought it was supposed to be the speaker of the assembly, but it's apparently the prime minister, but they're challenging this constitutionally, especially because it's a co-leadership situation that they set up, leader of the party rather than just the prime minister. And practically, I think that makes sense because you appoint somebody in the prime minister position who's really not like the most like kind of strong and capable and that would be able to lead. They're supposed to just be more of the caretaker of the house and not get in the president's way. And so that's also creating a lot of controversy because nobody elected the PPP leader as the president of South Korea, and why are they sharing this power? Now, many of you are wondering, why didn't he just get impeached immediately? Officially, for impeachment, you need 200 out of the 300 lawmakers, so essentially 2/3 majority to impeach the president. You also need 2/3 of the lawmakers to show up for a quorum, which is essentially is like the minimum amount of people that need to show up before you take the vote. So they weren't even able to officially take the vote because they didn't have 200 out of the 300 lawmakers. And yes, you know how I was saying like this is probably more of a Romeo trying to save his cookie situation. Before the impeachment vote, they voted on the special probe of the First Lady to try to get all of the lawmakers on the president's side into the National Assembly, and in total they were able to get 195 lawmakers. 190 lawmakers come from the Democrat Party, the president's opponents, and they only needed 10. They were able to get 5 more lawmakers, and only 3 of those 5 came from the president's party, and they were there to vote. And the most famous one is An Chol-soo out of the president's party. And yeah, he always the outcast. Now, they stood united. The president's party, the PPP party, stood united behind the president. Was it to support the president? Was it to be like taking a stance for their version of how they see democracy? No, not really. They was CYA, because what they found from the previous impeachment of President Park, which was also the conservative party, was that their careers were decimated. In the next election, because of the taint that they got from the impeachment of President Park, they lost a lot of their seats and political power. And some of the people who were able to survive that and actually now are still stars of the PPP probably are just like, we don't want to go back to square one. We don't want to start all over again when we barely brought ourselves out of the wreckage. So they're looking after their jobs. Also, politically, what they're looking at is they do not want an immediate impeachment, which would lead to a very fast election timeline that would most likely bring in Lee Jae-myung, who is the star of the Democrat Party, into the office of the presidency and have 5 years of Lee Jae-myung as the president with a National Assembly that they control right now. And so the political game there is that the PPP is trying to delay when President Yoon steps down from power. They're thinking that most likely it'll happen in February, and then the fastest elections would be April and May. Right now, there are pending cases against Lee Jae-myung, the star of the Democrat Party, that may disqualify him from running for president. Already there were this fall, this whole year has been like a political battle, a political civil war behind the scenes, while we was talking about scooters and Dior bags and Minnie Jin and her minions and bunny uncles in the National Assembly and Honey crying. Oh, there was a bigger story going on behind the scenes. Because remember, Lee Jae-myung, the star of the Democratic Party, ran against President Yoon in the last presidential election. President Yoon won by a very narrow margin. Again, President Yoon was almost not even supposed to win. He was supposed to be set up as like the dud candidate that would be easy to beat. However, Lee Jae-myung has a lot of skeletons in his closet, and those issues are still being litigated, and he may be disqualified. So the president's party, the PPP, is trying to slow this process down as much as possible so that those rulings can pop up that would bar Lee Jae-myung from becoming president. If you're wondering why Lee Jae-myung would probably be not the best choice for president, in my opinion, I've done so many videos on him and his crazy behavior that led up to the presidential election where President Yoon won, and it is shocking. And just in a nutshell, like I said, Lee Jae-myung, when he does his public appearances and his persona as a politician, is extremely skilled. Oh my goodness, this guy does not give up, and this guy can put on a good show, but behind the scenes, backstage, you'd think that Ellen was a lapdog. He would even get into an argument with his own brother and his brother's wife at the dinner table, and when he was the mayor or the governor of a district south of Seoul, Lee Jae-myung got so mad that he would call the police on his own brother and have them waiting for him, the brother, when he got home to arrest him and put him in for questioning. He even tried to lock his own brother up in like a psychiatric ward, and there are telephone recordings of him screaming and yelling and saying all nasty sorts of things to his brother and the brother's wife. And there's even a very famous actress who had an affair with him and got so mad at him that she publicly denounced him and just brought all the receipts. Oh my God, she brought some big old receipts that even led Lee Jae-myung to go to the hospital to get an examination to prove that a doctor says that there's no mole down there that identifies his equipment, because the actress was like, if you don't believe me, go. She's like, I know every inch of his body. And then the doctor, though, said that, oh, there is no identifying birthmark there. But there were a lot of suspicions that that doctor might have been paid off or whatever, that hospital was within his district. But officially, so that's what I'm saying, like officially, like he sidesteps. And let's not even talk about the people that were whistleblowers that suddenly went unalived. And I mean, in particular, one person who even posted on his Facebook saying like, okay, I need to do the whistleblowing, but the appointment is not here yet, so I have to go in hiding. So that's why I'm not going to be on Facebook, but I am not a person that's going to be unaliving myself. So just wanted to let everybody know. Well, turns out he got unalived. So, or the official story is that he unalived himself. So there's just, oh yeah. And then also holding hands with mafia bosses, all this kind of stuff. So this just puts a Dior bag, I mean, as nothing. And especially when you count in his wife and what she's doing, like making her assistants organize her panty drawer. And, you know, that's just the least of it. But, you know, imagine your staff as a public servant, you're asking other public servants, and you're not the public servant as a wife, but you're ordering your husband's public servants to go fold your panties and organize your panty drawer. But back to President Yoon. He has had a travel ban issued on him. So I guess people were worried that he might have pulled a Bashar al-Assad out of Korea, but he is stuck in Korea now. And he's gone into more of this isolation type of situation while they work out his either resignation or impeachment. A police investigation has been started on President Yoon on charges of insurrection, mutiny, and abuse of power. The police are still trying to decide whether they can make an emergency arrest, and that can be made if there's a risk of flight, which they have basically truncated with their travel ban, or if President Yoon's gonna, be floating around destroying evidence. So they're still considering whether to actually arrest him, which would mean most likely detain him and be, in a jail cell, maybe the one that, President Park warmed up with her years, or President Lee Jae-myung had warmed up at before President Yoon actually pardoned President Lee Jae-myung to reduce their sentences to get out of jail. And now it looks like he's probably going to be going to jail. They should probably just create the presidential suite at the prison in Korea. You have a presidential suite at even at like the Hyatt or the Hilton. So, hey, it looks like they might as well. Now, there were also some key arrests and resignations this week as well, namely the defense minister. The defense minister who was also part of President Yoon's high school alumni. He resigned, but he's also being held under investigation. And Choo Mi-ae, who is on the Democratic side, and she's been a long-term lawmaker. She's almost like the mother, like a real kind of like a mother of maybe the National Assembly. She has some of that credibility of being more of a trustworthy mother figure. So, but also a real fighter. And so she said that she got two big revelations. One could be sort of like a wrap-up smear that we talked about before, where it could be a little bit of hearsay, but she says she has a source that the defense minister was an avid reader of Mein Kampf, that Adolf Hitler book, and so he had like Hitler-ish tendencies. She also said that she has a copy of the martial law plan, and she released it to the media, that showed that the martial law declaration and the plans were planned well ahead of the actual martial law declaration, definitely in November, and that they were referencing the 1980 coup and martial law as kind of a blueprint. Choo said that this document was written by the Counterintelligence Secretary's office. So the Counterintelligence Director was also part of President Yoon's high school alumni, and that it was a civil war that was carefully planned in advance, that anticipated really taking the power away from the National Assembly. The document said, though, if the majority of the lawmakers want to cancel martial law, then the president cannot veto that. So that was kind of a crazy thing. And again, this whole high school alumni thing, why is that important? Yes, you've probably heard in Korea that your network is extremely important, and usually when there is appointees being made in the political world, a lot of it comes through your network, and the network can be from high school, college, even if you're a prosecutor, then who you were around with in your own prosecutorial class, whatever kind of groupings there are. But the fact that he relied so heavily on the high school alumni and thereby bypassing other people who most likely were a lot more qualified, I think really does indicate how isolated and desperate President Yoon was beginning to feel among all of this political battle and sabotage. Not that what he did was right, but I think it's a strong indication that you would go with quote unquote B players from your high school because the number one priority is trust. And if you talk to a lot of Korean people, especially men, they feel that their days and times, the reason why the high school alumni network is much more important than their college network, even though college is still important, is that it creates a group of people that you can trust later on in life, or so you think. It is a time before you developed into such a raging political animal and there's so much backstabbing going on in your life. It's a psychological safe space where you were able to trust people before, all of your ladder climbing started. And so there is a special place in a lot of, especially Korean men's heart, about their high school alumni network in terms of feeling like they can trust them more. And so that, I think, is a very strong indication that, President Yoon didn't really have the mental chops for the job of the presidency. As much as Lee Jae-myung is like a psychopath, I think, like you could look at the video where he wrote his letter in red ink. He does have the mental capacity and the strength to withstand all of these machinations of power. I mean, he's the one like provoking a lot of it too. So that dude, if you're going to give him a compliment, is that he is capable of weathering political storms. Whether he's going to do it for good or do it for something real wicked is up for you to decide. But after the evidence, I think it's very clear what side he would pick. Now, a lot of the big drama happened around, of course, the National Assembly, because the National Assembly is essentially that power block, constitutionally and structurally in the Korean government that can counter the power of the executive branch or the president's office. And I always thought the president in Korea had too much power because they would do things that would cross the line, and you had to wait until they were out of office before you had the power to then go after them, investigate them, and then hold them to account. And I never really liked that situation, because I think it's better if it's in real time, because when the next president is elected, they should be focused on supporting and moving the country forward. But then they really do have to then, like, okay, well, we got some back criminality to go over, and we have to make sure that that person's accountable. So it's always messy. In this situation, I think we saw that the legislature was really active. I guess it has to take martial law or civil war to wake them up. But I thought even structurally they might have had their hands tied. But it looks like there's actually enough structural constitutional power for moving forward the legislature to check the president in real time. And so the president realized that the National Assembly would be his biggest roadblock, National Assembly and also the media. But we have had a confession now from the Army Special Warfare Command Lieutenant General, who had gotten orders, he claimed, from the president on a secret burner phone to go to the National Assembly, break into the building, drag them people out, drag them bunny uncles and the lawmakers out so that they could not vote to stop the martial law. They could not, it just paralyzed that portion of the government so that the president could have supreme control and command. His name is Kwak Jong-gun, and he started singing like a bird at the National Assembly Defense Committee for questioning on the 10th. And so that's, Tuesday, Korea time. And it contradicted what he had said before, where he said, oh, I didn't know about this martial law thing. I just saw it on the news, and that's how I knew. Well, he was lying then, because he had a completely different story. He said that he had received the orders, he had received it well in advance, even on December 1st. Remember, the martial law declaration was December 3rd. He said on December 1st, he received instructions from the defense minister to secure 6 locations, including the National Assembly, 3 election management committees, the Democratic Party headquarters, and public opinion poll offices. And so this was totally against what he had said. Oh, I just heard it on the news. And just as an aside, yes, there is this question of, and a lot of testimony now coming out, that one of the priorities was to go into the election management offices and grab the data to prove that the Democratic Party had stolen the elections back in April. And so that was part of the priority and the plan, and that would actually make it easier under martial law for the president then to say, like, look, we do have to put anesthesia on the National Assembly because we don't even know if the election it was valid for the National Assembly members. Now, the latest is that the police have been arrested by the whoever thought, geez, the abuses in the police department, we need to arrest them. But how you call the police on the police, especially if they're the people who are guilty are at the top. So actually, the police have arrested the 2 highest officials in the police force, the National Police Agency chief, and also the chief of the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency, for their role in blocking the public from approaching the National Assembly. Remember, there were even grandmas laying down on the floor saying, like, no to martial law, no to this coup d'etat. We need to try to help the lawmakers get into the National Assembly and officially, constitutionally vote to stop this martial law, nip it in the bud. So we saw from the document that definitely in November, there were plans being drafted for a martial law declaration. But did people have a feeling this would happen even earlier than that? And this is why it's a bit tough in Korea to completely squash rumors, because it seemed like people had inklings. And this is somewhat reported, but it's not 100% confirmed. And then people kind of have to believe like, well, if it's not 100% confirmed, then we can't really act on it. But then at the same time, people have always seen like, well, a lot of these rumors turned out to be true. So in September, when the new defense minister, because he hasn't been in that job that long, the new defense minister was being approved by lawmakers, in their confirmation hearing, they asked the defense minister, there are rumors that you want to do martial law on this country. And the defense minister said, those are just lies and propaganda. Not only that, this is the 21st century. This is 2024. That is such an anachronistic maneuver. Nobody would do it, and nobody would really follow it, even if we tried. Well, looks like he had a change of heart, or he was just lying through his teeth, just like one of them bunny uncles at the National Assembly. So it begs the question, who is the president now? Is South Korea safe? Is it stable? And especially, in light with the whole constant North Korea tensions. And the official line from the government, they're trying to say like, well, we have to reassure the international community that Korea is okay. It's being led in the interim by the prime minister and the leader of the ruling conservative party, because they're going to fill in for President Yoon until they can figure out his resignation. So on the one hand, Korea does have, different branches of government and the bureaucracy. They're still running because they haven't been stopped because of martial law. So they'll continue to operate. But it is a bit of it is a tough question and situation to be in, because this seems to be a bit of an unstable situation. And in the past, we've had the situation where I believe it was the prime minister who took over during a power vacuum, and then there was a coup d'etat by one of the generals. I think it was Park Chung-hee, who took over from President Park's father, took over in this bit of a power vacuum when the prime minister was supposed to be running things. And so that's why Korean people are also a bit, skeptical about this, because, it's like a spare tire that, that spare tire can probably blow at any moment, and who knows who's gonna, put their Michelin on it. So the opposing political party, the Democrats in Korea, are saying that this is also a different format of a coup d'etat, because these are the prime minister and especially the ruling party leader are violating the Constitution by putting themselves in charge of the country. That's going to have to be duked out, I guess, by the Constitutional Court while they're trying to vote on impeachment, while they're trying to get the investigation on treason charges and mutiny charges, and trying to get President Yoon out of there. So this is right now a very big political negotiation that's going on right now. Constitutionally, under Clause 84 of the Constitution, the president cannot be charged with a criminal offense during his time in office except for insurrection and treason. So that narrows the scope of what they're going to be looking for to try to impeach him or charge him with criminal offenses on. An impeachment motion, that just goes through the National Assembly, and then, of course, right now, resignation. So all roads lead to President Yoon leaving office, but the question is that when is it going to happen? And the fight right now is to either accelerate it so that they can put in Lee Jae-myung, most likely from the Democratic Party, as the president in a snap election, or delay it as much as possible so that the ruling party can knock Lee Jae-myung out of the game and not have him as the president for the next 5 years. So the next impeachment vote will be this Saturday, Korea time again, so we'll have more updates. Again, it doesn't look like President Yoon is going to be making another announcement, but who knows? There might be some situations. Oh, and last week, right after the whole martial law was lifted, one of the first things that the National Assembly did was to move forward with their bill on setting up a special investigative body to go after the president's wife. So Romeo and Juliet, they're locked up in their castle right now. I don't know if she's like crying over her Juliet balcony, but definitely the president has been now sequestered. He has a travel ban on him, and it looks like his political future is over. And now the debate, now the fight is who is going to become the next president of South Korea. All right, guys, what do you think? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.